Hello YouTube, my name is SSJGazhan99 and this is my deck profiles. Currently, these are the decks that I'll be playing. I've got about 4 decks that I'm currently playing. I've got about 3 decks that I'm currently building for the new format. And I do this every now and again where I just put my deck builds up on the channel to show friends and other people what I'm building. Currently, this is my number 1 deck. It's not a completely finished archetype, so Konami is still releasing cards for these guys. This is the U.A deck, the Ultimate Athletes or the Ultra Athletes deck. So these, if you don't know what the Ultra Athletes do, I can tell you exactly what they do. Let's bring that out into the main sunlight. All the Ultra Athletes basically have the same effect, where they, from the hand, they bounce one UA monster on the field to special summon themselves. They all have that effect. They can only activate that effect on their own once per turn. So you can't go midfielder, bounce to special midfielder, and then the midfielder that you special to bounce to special slugger. You can't then reactivate the midfielder's effect to bounce special summon itself again. They all have that effect. They all have a secondary effect, and I'll come to that when I show them. Now I will mention their attack and defenses as well, so you can see what they do, and I will basically show you a few other bits and bobs. I do have an extra deck for them. They don't usually go into the extra deck right now. They're very limited to the amount of lower level monsters that they've actually got. They have mostly high level monsters, and it can get a bit crammed in the extra deck a little bit, but it can be useful going into certain monsters when you need them. So I'm going to go through the deck. I'll show you what my build is. I'll be doing about 3 or 4 different decks and profiles for those builds for you. Probably tomorrow, but tonight I'm going to do this one specifically, and I'll show you my build for the UAs. Okay, so being he's the only low-level monster for the UAs, first up we have the UA Midfielder. Now his secondary effect is to target another UA monster on the field, return it to the hand, and special summon another UA monster from hand with a different name to the one that you just bounced. That is obviously a once per turn. You can only activate that effect once per turn, as always. He is a 12-10 monster, so 1200 and 1000 defense. He's basically your only normal summonable UA monster straight from hand. So he has to be at 3. You've got to use him to search. Right, now your boss monster is the UA Slugger. Now he is, I call him the boss monster because he is dirty strong. Sorry, I'm trying to get a good light in here, but it's being a real pain in the neck to try and get the lighting right. It's just not having none of it. Let's try that. That's really precarious though. Hopefully I won't wobble it too much and it'll be alright. He is a 2300-700, and with Stadium, when you special summon a UA monster, all monsters you currently control gain 500. I'll mention that a bit later on. But what makes him the boss monster is he has the Amades effect. Basically, your opponent cannot activate card effects in the damage step when he attacks. So he's a 28 direct attacker. He's a 28 attacker with no response. So he's very good. He's definitely your boss monster. He's definitely the one you want on the field in the battle phase doing all your damage, and your opponent can't do much to stop him realistically. So he's your main guy. Oh, the lighting almost went. Oh, that was close. Right, next up is your Perfect Ace. He is kind of like your Light and Darkness Dragon style thing. His effect is basically to pitch a card from your hand set to the graveyard, or send a card from your hand to the graveyard, and negate the effect. Negate a card effect, obviously during your opponent's turn only, of course. So discard a card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So any card effect once per turn you can destroy. But as always, he's kind of similar to your Quasars, your Light and Darkness. You burn your cards until they can't do anything to stop you, and then you just run him over or whatever. Relatively easy to stop, but he's a 1500, 2500, so he's very good. He's useful, and again he has that stopping power in your opponent's turn. So in defense mode, he's quite a good monster. Next up is the U.A Goalkeeper. Now he's your level 6. Now I originally heard that he was going to be a level 5. He's going to be a level 5 warrior, Earth Warrior deck to go along with things like Feast of the Wild level 5, which is a really good card in this deck. I believe I don't run it. I don't think I run it anyway. I can't remember if I actually run that or not. I don't think so. I think I took it out for something else, which I'll get to. So yeah, I believe it was supposed to be a level 5 spam deck, but for some reason they changed it to be a multiple level deck. I don't know how that worked, but yeah, so his effect, he basically targets one UA monster and it can't be destroyed by battle or card effect once during that turn. So I believe that might even be during your opponent's turn only. Yeah, it is only during your opponent's turn only. He's a 1000 attacker, 2800 defender. So yeah, he's pretty decent. He has that effect, which is quite nice, but it's very situational. If he was level 5, he'd be much more useful, much more beneficial, because you could do things with Feast of the Wild level 5, go into like level 5 spam in terms of XYZs, and it'd be a lot more useful than he actually is. But as he stands, he's not bad. He's okay. Next up is the linebacker, or Blockbacker, U.A Blockbacker. Now his effect is once per turn, when your opponent special summons a monster/monsters, you can change their battle positions, and if you do, negate their effects. So it's very useful. It's I wouldn't say it's absolutely amazing, but you can do things like if you go into yeah. It's only when your opponent does it. So if they go into, say, for instance, they pendulum summon, you can turn all the monsters into defense mode, run them over, whatever you need to do the following turn, and they can't activate any of their effects, which is quite useful. Again, if they do, say, for instance, the Tellarknight stuff, and they go whoop, pop, 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 Blockbacker would instantly just change their battle positions, and their effects are negated. And I don't think it's a once per turn effect either. Well, it is a once per turn, so it is only once per turn they can actually activate that effect. So, again, it's not so bad. It's not so great in things like in against Tellarknights, because they'll just go into something like what's his name, the Trivier and all that sort of stuff, and just beat over him. He's a 1627 defense, and he's a level 7. So you can't really do a great deal with him. You could, if you wanted to, do things like Draco Sack, Big Eye, but the amount of times I actually use this card is very rare. But he can be situationally good. So 2's okay, 3 is too cloggy. I may even drop him down to 1 because I don't think he's that great. But he can open up the Big Eye Dracosac plays if you put them in the extra deck if you want to. Next one is the U.A Playmaker. I believe he's meant to be a running back, actually. But his effect is to target a UA monster you control. Oh, sorry, when a UA monster you control declares an attack, you can have this card lose exactly 800 attack. And if you do, the attacking monster gains 800 attack. So it's a permanent gain of 800 attack for your UA monster, which is phenomenal. It's very good. He's a level 8, he's 26 2000, so he'll drop down to 1800, which isn't exactly fantastic, but, if you're going into a Slugger, and you've got the 500 boost from the tower, or a stadium, you've then got Playmaker giving you an 800 boost, you end up on 31, 39 without a response from your opponent. Then, during main phase 2, you bounce the Playmaker for something else, and go from there. Do you see what I'm saying? So he can be really useful. He has that switchability. Being a level 8 makes him very. I don't really see any massively great level 8 XYZ monsters that can really utilise well in this deck, because most of the time you're going to be summoning him out. You're going to be that's going to go right into the light. Summon him out. Power up your Slugger. Your Slugger runs in. You bounce him back for your ace or for your goalkeeper, and then you stop. You're not really going to be leaving them on the field to be beat over by something else. So he can be useful. Situational again. I'm going to run him at 2. I'm trying him out at 2 to see how it goes. Hopefully it's good. Right, next is basically a filler card for other UA monsters when they actually do get released, and it is Lady Warrior of the Wasteland. There's a reason I put her in there. She basically special summons any Earth Warrior type monsters with 1500 attack from your deck in face-up attack position. So she hits Midfielder, she hits Ace, and she hits Goalkeeper. So they're the ones that she actually hits. She's pretty decent, and also she makes it so that any rotas you have in hand, or reinforcements of the army you have in hand, are no longer dead, because once you've gone through your three midfielders, you're kind of dead in hand when you draw your rotas. So she makes rota live, which is also quite nice. But she will be one of the first ones to be taken out, along with Goalkeeper and possibly Linebacker, for any other UA support that comes in the future. So that's my monster lineup. It's not a great deal of monsters. It's probably, I don't know, 15 monsters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 monsters. That's a pretty decent guess. So there's the 16 monsters. Okay, magics. First up is the UA powered jersey. Now this one, you target a UA monster you control, obviously. It gains 1,000 attack and defense. Let's move that to one side so it's not blinding you. It gains 1,000 attack and defense. When it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage done to your opponent is doubled, and also it may attack once again in a row. So you could basically have the double tap effect with 1,000 attack and double damage. Obviously, your second attack, if you're attacking a monster, it's double damage. If you're attacking directly, it's not. It's just standard damage. So the secondary effect is that during your standby phase, banish the equipped monster, but if you bounce the monster this card is equipped to from the deck, from the field to your hand, and this is then sent from the field to the grave, you can then return this card back to your hand. So it becomes a kind of permanent equipped spell card that you can continuously use over and over again for any specific reasons to get any damage out. So it's pretty decent. It's got double tap, it's got return ability, but the downside is if it's still a face up on the field with your monster during your standby phase, you banish the monster and it's sent to the graveyard, which is never a good thing, especially in this type of deck. Now, the MVP of this deck, bar none, is the UA Stadium. Its effect is if a UA monster is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can add one UA monster from your deck to your hand. So that if you can get 2 or 3 summons off in the same turn, you can do it if you add like double summons to the deck and things like that. You can do more than 1 or 2 moves per turn. You get more searches out of it, which is useful. It's good. It is good. The second effect is once per turn. If a UA monster is UA monster / monsters is special summoned to your side of the field, all monsters you currently control gain 500 attack. Really useful, extremely useful. Again, could be used in Pendulum, but again, I'm not so sure about running Pendulum in this deck yet. They might release Pendulum support in the new support that's coming out for the deck, but I don't know. I have no idea. But again, it's a very, very good effect. It is the searcher of the deck. It is the #1 card, bar none, in the entire deck. If that card goes away, your plays kind of crumble. Unfortunately, you kind of end up dead. So in order to counteract that, double terraforming has to be done. You need to search it out as fast as possible. It's your key card. It's your #1 card. It needs to be in your hand as quickly as possible. So next up we have obviously the next searcher, which is reinforcements of the army. Anyone that has OCD probably will be a bit peeved at me right now because I have a platinum rare reinforcement and 2 commons. I actually had to lend a friend of mine my other common, and I kind of didn't have any commons put back in here, so I ended up just putting in a platinum rare. But I'm not a rarity whore. I like commons. Commons are the best cards. They don't bend. They're the best. Okay, so they're obviously your searchers for your warriors. Level 4s. You're going to be hitting your lady of the Wasteland, and you're going to be hitting your midfielders to do whatever you need to do and go from there. Right. Next up is the Monarchs Stormforth. As you can see, there's tons and tons of special summoned monsters of high level, 5, 6, 7, 8. So using the Monarchs Stormforth, you contribute your opponent's monster, summon a Slugger to the field. You know, get your search from Stadium, add an ace to your hand, or add a midfielder to your hand, or whatever. Go from there. Bounce to special summon something. You know, rinse and repeat, and go from there. It's good, very good. Now the next card, I could probably drop this down to 2 with Slugger, but I'm going to keep it at 3 because I'm not too sure if I actually want to play 2 of these or 3. It's going to be Mystical Space Typhoon. Now everybody hates back row, so again, it's one of those. Yeah, I can take one of those out and put a Dark Hole in and get more field clear if I wanted to. With Slugger on field, you don't really need Mystical Space Typhoon because they can't activate anything in the battle phase. So it's kind of irrelevant, really. Next up is Raigeki. As always, Raigeki's good. Raigeki's awesome. Raigeki's stupid. I don't actually know why. Well, I don't know why it's unbanned, but it's still a pretty broken card. It wins games. Next up is, I'm not too sure about this one, so it does help sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. Transmodify. Okay, Transmodify is basically set one face-up monster you control, send it to the graveyard. Special summon one monster from your deck with the same type and attribute as that monster in the grave, but one level higher. You can only activate one Transmodify per turn. So you can go, normal summon Midfielder, search for Ace, Transmodify into say, Transmodify into Slugger, bounce the Slugger to special the Ace, and so on and so on. Again, if you've got a pretty dead Ace on field, you can Transmodify it into a Goalkeeper if you wanted to. Goalkeeper Transmodifies into Linebacker. Linebacker Transmodifies into Playmaker. You can see where I'm coming from. It's a decent card. It is a tech. I'm running it at 1 just to see how it goes. It hasn't really won me anything, but again, it makes plays. So there is that side of things as well. Okay, so next up we have the traps, and as always, you're going with the one-ofs. So Compulse, Bottomless, Solemn, and Vanities. Vanities can limit the deck a little bit, but it is a tribute summon deck. In essence, it's a tribute summon deck, so it doesn't realistically matter with Vanities. It just helps to stun for a turn or two if you come up against some big decks. But it's okay. It's all right. It's helped me out a few times. Played my mate Zombie deck and kind of run into Vanities, and he kind of crippled pretty quickly. So, but Zombies are very, very special summon heavy. And my last one is Breakthrough Skill. I could take that out for anything realistically, Breakthrough, but it's useful. Has its uses across the board, and it's all right. So it's not exactly fantastic. I've had very little testing with this deck since the new ban list come out. I always switch my decks over when the ban list comes out. I don't wait until the 1st of April or the 1st of January. As soon as that ban list is released, my decks immediately change. So you'll notice that you haven't seen the deck I had before this, but I actually ran things like Hidden Armories with the Snatch Steel and triple U.A Power Jersey, because if I had the Snatch Steel in hand, I could then search the Power Jersey and so on and so on. Become quite useful. Right, so the extra deck is 2 Silent Honor Arc. Honor Arc is good, Honor Arc is useful, and also I pulled this in my Gold Series, so why the hell not? Next one is Castell. Castell is awesome, he's very useful. If you can get the level 4 plays, these are pretty much the go-to monsters. Again, Cowboy, Excalibur, again, they're quite useful depending on situation. Excalibur's not so useful, to be honest. Once you've burned him out, he's kind of useless, if I'm absolutely honest with you. So he's okay, he's alright, but he's not fantastic. Then we've got Photon Papal Operative. Again, very situational card. Most of the stuff you've got in hand, like Sluggers, will be much, much better than Pap, and pretty much most of them cards, except for maybe Cowboy for game. So Dagusta Emerald is good for recycling. If I had a Lavarval chain, I probably would take out Pap for Lavarval, but I don't know. You very rarely go into level 4s in this deck anyway, so it's not absolutely necessary, but it can be useful anyway. Next up is Dark Rebellion Dragon. Has won me games a couple of times. Stealing opponents' attack points, running in, punching over for game. It's useful. It does its thing if you can get it going. I hardly ever hit it. Diamond Direwolf, very, very rarely hit this card. Being honest, I could probably take it out for a Draco Sack. But so next up is Ragnar Zero. It's good against Cleese. It's good against some other decks that power up as well from Pendulums. Next up is Abyss Dweller. Just locks out the graveyard for a little bit. Again, not so useful. I probably would go into Castell or or 101 over this anytime, any day of the week, but it can be useful. It does help. Now these ones I'm more than likely going to be using and going to be going into. That's going to be Tiraz. Shark Force is extremely useful, and obviously Volcasaurus. And when you've got Volcasaurus on field, you always go with a Gaia Drake, the Thunder Charger. So that is the extra deck. The extra deck is very, very rarely used in this deck anyway, so it's not exactly imperative you use it. It's just there for the situation, just in case you need to use it. So this is my my UA deck. It is. I enjoy the deck. I actually quite enjoy it. It's a good fun deck. If I was to bring out a fun deck list, my top 100 top deck that I'm very well known for in my Yu-Gi-Oh group is Cloudians. Love the deck. I love the concept behind them. Just they're too old, too slow, and they just get run over by everything. My next deck is Crystal Beasts. Love Crystal Beasts to pieces. You've seen them on my channel before. Love them. Love to see more support come out from them. They will be one of these decks that do really well with new support. So I'm kind of hoping they bring something decent out. The stuff they brought out, the Pendulum stuff, is yank. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything for the deck. It's not going to speed it up at all. It just clogs up space. If they were Crystal Beasts and they run towards the effect of, say, Judgment Dragon and things like that, they'd be extremely useful, but they're not. They don't actually go towards not Judgment Dragon, the Rainbow Dragon, sorry. They don't go towards his summoning. So I don't really enjoy them. The support was a bit meh. There's one card I quite liked. There is another card that's come out in this set that is called Turnover Tactics. The card's effect is basically to, if you have 2 or more UA monsters on the field, you can activate it. It's a quick play spell. You can bounce the 2 UA monsters you control back to the deck and special summon, and then return. Or you can bounce any like monsters you control. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It's UA monsters you control. You can bounce UA monsters you control back to the deck, and then you can return cards on your opponent's side of the field back to their deck. Then you special summon UA monsters from your deck to the field, and your opponent special summons monsters from their main deck that were returned to the main deck. So if you're in a very, if you're in a very XYZ or synchro heavy deck, you can just bounce them back into the extra deck, and they get nothing, and you get 2 monsters on the field, different names, and so on and so on. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I haven't actually pulled them. It's unbelievable. They're rare. They're rare cards, and I haven't pulled any. I've looked around all my locals. No one's got any. So I'm still struggling to get hold of them. They're situational cards, and they may replace things like Breakthrough and Vanities and things like that for like just stun. But they're okay. They're all right. I'd give this deck probably, in my fun factor, probably a 7 or 7.5. I'd say for fun wise, it's good to play, but the deck isn't complete. When the deck's complete and Konami are finished with them, hopefully they'll be decent enough to go into tournaments and play and go, yeah, this is pretty sweet. Like you would with BA when they first come out, and still with BA now. So I'm hoping that they do something good with the deck. So thank you very much for watching, and as always guys, I'll see you next time.